The Longbeards, that's us, lad. Our father, lord and king, was none other than the great Durin the First, Durin the Deathless, the great monarch, who was the first dwarf ever to be created by the Maker, and whose spirit, it is said, after his death, after thousands of years of life, to wander first to his son, Durin the Second, and then to his son, Durin the Third, and finally to his son, our present king, and Durin the First's great-grandson, Durin the Fourth. As you may well know, though all dwarves, men and most women, have large, buoyant beards, but none more than us Longbeards, in addition to generally being longer than those of any other dwarvish clan. They are also full and wide, almost as wide as those of the broad beams. We have a wider variety of hair and beard colour than any other clan, from snow to whitish blonde, like the sands of Andrast, to jet black, though this, as you know, is the least common, to deep mahogany, to golden blonde, to straw, to grey mithril, like the mithril we alone in all the world do mine and fashion. The only colour we do not sport is any hue of red. Our eyes, like you may have seen, shine like the minerals of the earth, from deep sapphire to grey granite, to brown as the soil itself. Even emerald, though very rare, is noted among some of our people. Jet, however, is not, and that is mayhap the only exception to what I said before. As you know, though some of our people braid their hair, most do not. So with their beards. Out of respect, they consider their beards one of the finest gifts of the Maker to his children, a gift that should not and need not be modified or amended. Indeed, we have the finest beards, both dwarf men and those dwarf women who grow them, which is a higher proportion than for all other clans, of all the clans in the world. As you know from your mother's side of your family, our hair and beards are sometimes very wavy, sometimes curly, and sometimes straight as needles. We also stand taller than all of the dwarven clans, some say by as much as average a half an inch. And we are the only clan to have mithril in our domain, and who knows how to mine and fashion it into tools, armour, and weapons. No dwarf from another clan could be what you are, my son, a proud mithril smith of the house of Durin, the Longbeards, the greatest clan of the greatest race in all the worlds, and soon to be a journeyman. We need to hurry for you to be in time for your test, but first I need to tell you a bit more about your people. Like I said, we Longbeards are the only dwarves who have in our domains, mainly here in Khazad-dûm, but also in a smattering of villages and hamlet strongholds in eastern Eriador, any true silver that is so sought after. But this was not always so. The great forebear of our clan, Durin the First, Durin the Great, Durin the Deathless, first awoke alone after he had been placed in Middle-earth by Mahal, after the first time when he had been fashioned and awoken in Valinor and given life by Eru Ilúvatar, up to the north of here under Mount Gundabad, and not in Khazad-dûm. Now Durin was alone, and he walked alone from Gundabad, which is about where the Misty Mountains, where Khazad-dûm is located, and the Grey Mountains meet. But it stands alone, with 3 tops, and is in fact part of the chain most now called the Mountains of Angmar, for they lie wholly within that evil realm. Ever southward he trod until he came upon Lake Chelid Zaram, which men call Mirrormere, in Dimrill Dale, where you have been and which you know is just to the east of us, on the border of Lorien. Those were the years of the stars, and thus there were no sun or moon, no day or night. Durin gazed deep into Mirrormere, and there he saw the crown of Durin reflected in its still, dark, deep blue waters. From the heavens above, right above his head, he straightway understood that this was a sign of Mahal, conveyed through the stars of Varda, that this was the place where he should found the great city and dwarf hold of Khazad-dûm, where you now stand, and in whose barren caves he found the rest of his people, still asleep, though waking by his touch. We owe him everything. I've told you about us Longbeards. Then there are the Firebeards, which, as their clan's name implies, to a dwarf, except for some of their women, who have no beard at all, have red beards of varying hues. Most of them have red hair on the top of their heads to match. It is said that even their elders only get a few flecks of grey or white tufts wear on their chins, even when their tops grow snowy white. The first lord of the Firebeards awoke under the southern roots of Mount Dolmed, and soon thereafter his people began waking to behold him and the roots of the mountain. It is southern side where they built the great city of Nogrod, not as great as our Khazad-dûm perhaps, but still one of the most populous settlements of old Beleriand. The Firebeards, as their clan's name implies, have big bushy red beards. Like I said, the hair on their heads is too invariably red. Their eyes range from deep blue to light blue to emerald green to honey-coloured. Their skin is fair and their cheeks soft and rosy. They often wear both beard and hair in thick plaits, often bound with ornamental gold rings. The hair on their heads and in their beards is often curly, sometimes straight, but never wavy. The Firebeards are superb jewellers, rivaling those of the Noldor, and goldsmiths, and though I hate to admit it in this latter category, they put even our people to shame. The Firebeards and broad beams, of which I'll tell you later, in the first age, fashioned the Nauglamir, also known by men as the necklace of the Dwarves, a piece of jewellery that had no equal throughout the history of Arda. I would say no equal in any world. It encompassed many fair adamants, diamonds, rubies, sapphires, and emeralds, as well as many other precious stones, which had been brought to Middle-earth from Valinor by the Noldor king Finrod Felagund of Nargothrond, and the gold which bound them was both thick and light, so light, in fact, that the whole piece weighed no more than had it been made of straw. The Nauglamir was fashioned by the Firebeards and broad beams for King Felagund, but after the fall of his realm of Nargothrond to Glaurung the Firedrake, father of dragons, it lay forgotten in the serpent's hoard for many lives of men. Hurin Thalion, whose son Turin Turambar had slain the dragon but then fallen on his own sword Glaurung because he thought the worm had killed his sister Nienor Nienel, brought the Nauglamir from Nargothrond to Menegroth, where Thingol of the Sindar was king, and gave it to him, throwing it before Thingol's feet, and scornfully thanking King Greycloak for taking in his son Turin and his wife Morwen. Then Queen Melian the Maya calmed the wrathful Hurin, and in her eyes he saw the truth that had been betrayed by the Dark Lord Morgoth, And so he picked up the necklace and offered it gracefully to the Elven King, saying, "Receive now, Lord, the necklace of the dwarves as a gift from one who has nothing, and as a memorial of Hurin of Dorlomin. For now my fate is fulfilled, and the purpose of Morgoth achieved. But I am his thrall no longer." It was over this ornament that the seed of the first enmity between dwarves and elves was sown, because King Eluthingal of the Sindar, the Grey Elves, once he had received a Silmaril of Fëanor from the hand of Beren One-Handed, from inside the belly of Carcharoth, where Beren's hand still clasped the jewel, decided that it should be set as the frontispiece for the Nauglamir. And so he commissioned the dwarves of Novgorod to set the stone inside their work of gold. This they did, but, like I always tell you, beware of gold sickness. Of all the clans, the Firebeards have suffered from this disease the most. The smiths who set the Silmaril in the Nauglamir for King Thingol got it, and they got it bad. So bad that they slew the king and the smithy they had borrowed from him in Merigoth, and to which he had come alone, and made off with the necklace. But the grey elves pursued and killed them to a dwarf, excepting two, who managed to get back to Novgorod. When the two dwarves, Raidhjux and Raudhamr, we used to name them, came home to their mountain, they lied, it is said, and told their kinsman, the Elven King, had the others murdered to not have to pay them for their labour. And so the Firebeards of Novgorod, enraged by the outrage, marched on Menegroth and Doriath, the realms surrounding it. Because Queen Melian was a Maya, a lesser goddess, she had departed from her people in to the Undying Lands, you see, grief-stricken by the death of her husband. And so the girdle of Melian, the magical ward and mantle protecting the land, had vanished. The grey elves fled in fear at the approach of the wrathful dwarves, who sacked and plundered Menegroth, taking the Nauglamir with them. On their way back to the mountain, however, they were waylaid by a force of Lyquendi, green elves of Osiriand, and Ents, 3 herds, led by Beren One-Handed, at the ford of Sarnarthrad, on the slopes of Mount Dolmed. The dwarves were slain, and the treasure of Menegroth cast into the river Askar, except for the Nauglamir, which Beren bore back to his wife, Luthien, the daughter of the slain King Thingol. This is the origin of the ancestral enmity between all the dwarves and elves in Middle-earth, because we Longbeards of Khazad-dûm know the truth of it, and that it did not concern the Noldor. We bear no grudge against any elf, and especially not against the Noldor who had no part in it.